Certainly if you expect veganism to be this like perfect diet and then it's not, you get sick or you just don't feel perfect. It's not surprising if you go looking in the totally opposite direction for the next best diet. Why we aren't vegan anymore by Life with Beans. I was not familiar with this channel. It seems to be a family vlogging channel. Some of you know my feelings on family vlogging. It's not good. I'm not a fan of it at all. I have a whole video on that if you're interested. I won't be showing any of her kids or anything in this. I don't know if she shows her kids in the video. Going by the thumbnail, it doesn't look like it. But if she does, you know, if you see a black bar or something, that's where a kid would be. I will say a lot of ads, not a good sign maybe right off the bat. It doesn't leave me with a good feeling, I have to say. Not because, I mean, put as many ads as you want in a video. I really don't care. My personal account, I have YouTube Premium anyway, so I don't even get ads. But on a video like this, I don't know, it leaves me with a bad taste in my mouth. Although maybe that's unfair. It's just her sharing her experience. Why shouldn't she monetize that, I guess? I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of the Yovana one where she literally got caught and then had to make a video saying, I'm so sorry, and it was just like filled with ads. So I take it back. The ads they're fine.
I thought that it was better to just make a video with the reasons, just to kind of be honest with you guys. There's a lot of you guys that have been following for a long time. I know a lot of you guys are also vegan too, and maybe you look up to us as a vegan family, and yeah, you might just want a bit more understanding as to why this happened.
So right off the bat, she seems a lot different from some of the other ex-vegan. One in particular I can think of where the person was rather dismissive, pretty snooty maybe. I feel like a mom using that word towards her audience, just like, why did you expect me to be vegan? Like, why are you upset that I'm not vegan anymore? It's like, well, duh, you were like pretty obviously a vegan channel. Most of your content, a lot of your content was about vegan stuff, you know? So I appreciate her acknowledging that, you know, people would want to maybe have a little bit more information. I mean, if you choose to put your life out there and talk about what you eat, of course, people are going to have questions when you change what you eat, you know, or radically change your channel. You ultimately made the decision. I've made the decision to make what I ate today's and all of that, and to talk about veganism if I'm no longer vegan. Of course, people are going to be like, okay, maybe tell us why. Okay, so she talks about they were vegetarian, she and her husband and the kids as well, for about 3 years, and then they went vegan for about 3 years after that, and that the transition was pretty easy because they had already been vegetarian. They went vegan, and I presume vegetarian as well, for ethical reasons, for the animals.
And one question we always got was, what about if the kids don't want to be vegan? What would you do if they don't want to be vegan? I think, again, in that first year of being vegan, I was probably a lot more like, oh, you know, they do want to be vegan. I know they do. But, you know, after I felt like I'd chilled out a lot more with it, I kind of just thought, you know what, they probably won't be vegan. I always kind of thought some of them might stay vegetarian, like when they grow up. Some of them will go back to being omni, you know, non-vegan. And some of them might stay vegan, and all I can do is sort of like raise them with the sort of morals and values that I want to raise them with, but ultimately their choices are going to be their choices.
I think that's the best attitude you can possibly have about any aspect of your kid's life, right? You can't run their life. All you can do is be a good example and be kind. Don't hit them. Provide them with healthy food. Don't yell at them. But ultimately, they're going to grow up and they're going to make their own decisions, and you have to let them do that.
I think the kids all still grew perfectly well on a vegan diet. They were all very healthy. I was healthy. I did have some problems with low iron as a vegan, but I had the same problem with low iron as a vegetarian and when I was eating meat way back when.
Okay, so that's interesting to hear. I assumed, given that she has a family, I thought that there was going to be something with the kids maybe that she thought, some sort of health thing, or worried about the kids not being as healthy without vegan food. That's what I assumed going into this. Turns out that that's not the case. Apparently she thought they just did just fine on vegan foods. So I'm going to guess that the reasoning is going to be something along the lines of social issues, maybe being like social outcast, or just it looks like from one of the thumbnails a lot of the kids are older. Maybe they're in school. I don't know with the pandemic. Well, it sounds like they're Australian. They're pretty open, right? They've like been open. I think kids have been in school and whatnot. And kids are at school here anyway. Point is, I'm assuming that at least some of her kids are in school. So maybe there's been some issues there with food and bringing in food. But I don't know why I'm speculating. We can just watch the video. Okay, so I guess it all started with her pregnancy. I guess her most recent pregnancy, she had twins, and I guess before that had triplets. And she had an issue, a growth issue that I guess is very common in multiples.
I found a lot of information about eating as much protein as possible, and I think irrationally I was blaming myself. I didn't think it was my fault per se. I just thought maybe I could help her grow better if I incorporated some animal products back into my diet. So I decided to bring back eggs and some dairy products back into my diet, thinking that, you know, it's just going to be for the end of my pregnancy while I am trying to help these babies grow as much as I can.
And then went back to vegan after that. Yeah, I mean, I don't, you know, I think a lot of you know how I'm gonna feel about that. There's a lot that goes on during pregnancy. It's just a very tough time. I mean, y'all know I hate being pregnant. It's horrible. Luckily, I don't have a whole lot of morning sickness issues or anything like that, or really food aversions to a lot of vegan foods. I mean, I have food aversions anyway when I'm not pregnant. It's not really that much more severe when I am pregnant. And I'm able to get a lot of calories from soy and peanut butter and all the foods I eat normally anyway. So I didn't have any trouble being vegan while pregnant. So it could be very easy for me to just be like, well, obviously you can stay vegan while pregnant. But number one, I had singles both times. We don't have like any twins in my family, I don't think. Yeah, so that's not something I have experience with at all. It's not something a lot of moms have experience with. Regardless, you know, there are people who really struggle to get enough calories on a vegan diet, particularly when you have more than one baby growing inside you, right? You do need even more fuel, especially during that third trimester, and just having maybe intense cravings for stuff, or having intense food aversions to lots of like useful vegan foods, or having issues taking supplements. Point is, I'm 100% sympathetic when it comes to pregnancy and trying to be vegan or trying to diet and be healthy at all while pregnant. People who haven't been pregnant or are one of those lucky few who just breezed through pregnancy. You know, it was just you got the glow, you had the baby, and that was it. There's like, what, 3 of you? It can also be a scary time if you are really unlucky and you get a doctor, if you get an OBGYN or someone else involved in your care while you're pregnant who is really maybe assertive and really unhappy with you being vegan, or maybe you have family members who are unhappy with you being vegan. Maybe your husband or your spouse is unhappy with you being vegan, right? That adds a whole nother layer of stress and anxiety to it. I don't blame her at all for eating some animal products and feeling that kind of pressure or that worry. Okay, so the next thing I guess was with breastfeeding. She struggles with breastfeeding, and so they did donor breast milk for a while, ultimately went to formula.
They didn't want to drink it. Like, it's sort of hard to explain. They would kind of drink it, but they kind of just kept spilling out of their mouths and they weren't keen on it. Like, they didn't drink much of their bottle. And it was a bit of a struggle to get them to gain weight while drinking this soy formula. They didn't seem very interested in it. And so we decided to try the dairy formula, the same one that all of our other kids had had. And it was completely different. The babies drank it completely fine.
Again, you know, you have to do what you have to do. It would be so easy for me to say, just use soy formula or just breastfeed, you know, whatever, because while I don't breastfeed, it was horrible, no luck there, but we did use soy formula with both of our kids and they had no issues with it. But obviously if your kid does and you have to go to cow's milk, you know, you have to do what you have to do. What, you're gonna let them starve? Hopefully there will be more options in the future. Hopefully we will have a genetically engineered, a clean milk-based, cow milk-based formula. That would be awesome.
The kids start school when there's a birthday. The birthday kid brings in a cake. And I mean, that cake isn't vegan because the family's not vegan. And so in the beginning, we would, give them alternatives. We would pack them a slice of cake if we knew that they were going to be having cake that day. It came to a point where we weren't always notified. And so sometimes they'd just come home upset that kids at school had cake and that they missed out. We tried to pack different treats, things that they could just keep at school, like biscuits and stuff like that. But in the end, it just wasn't the same. Like, they still felt like they were missing out on the same cake that all their school friends were having. And so, you know, we sat the kids down and we said, you can eat the cake if you want to eat the cake, and it's okay. And it kind of felt like they wanted to say yes, that they wanted to eat the cake. They were quite reluctant. I guess just the way I felt in my pregnancy when I ate non-vegan food, but we reassured them that it was okay, and in the end they said okay.
It's what I thought. It's social stuff, being at school, having food brought, having, you know, cake or something because it's some kid's birthday, and, you know, obviously the kids are going to feel left out. This is, I think, the hardest part, and I say this with no experience whatsoever. My kid is still 4 and 2, my 2 little kids. So, and with COVID, I mean, they've basically just been with us for over a year. You know, they have very little experience with going anywhere and having someone give them food, anything like that. But I imagine that this is one of the toughest things potentially for a vegan family, is how to handle stuff like that. I think it's potentially easier when your kids get older, because then, you know, it's their decision. Like I said before, you have to let them make their own decisions. But at what age do you do that? You know, if I, like my 4-year-old, if my 4-year-old's going to someone's house and I know they're not vegan, I would want to make sure that they have vegan food because they're still so young. I would hate for them to grow up and go, wait, you let me eat animal products because you just like didn't want to deal with it when I was out somewhere. You know what I mean? Or you thought I should make the decision when I'm 4 years old. Do you know what I mean? So with my kids being this young, like it's kind of an easy answer for me right now. And I feel like the nicest thing to do is to assume that when they grow up, they would like to have not participate in, you know, the cruelty of eating animals and most animal products. And so I think the nicest thing to do is to make sure that while they're young, that doesn't happen to the best of my ability. But at what age do you say, this is your thing now? It's up to you now, you know? I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for that. I don't think anyone really does. And I think it depends on the kid to a large degree. Obviously, her kids are feeling left out, so you have to take that into account. With my, I say toddler, with my 4-year-old, they are very rule-oriented, I would say. And so I have a feeling that that's not going to be so much of an issue for them, but who knows? And with my younger one, they're a whole different thing, totally different personalities. So, you know, who knows? It's kind of one of those things where you cross that bridge when you get to it, but always try to be compassionate and understanding. We still live in a world where most people are not vegan, and we can't expect children to just go, well, they just don't understand, but I'm doing the right thing. And, you know, we're not raising little martyrs. And when it comes to something that small, a slice of cake, I mean, that's the thing I struggle with. I don't want them to look back and go, really? You let me eat animal product? Like, really? But I also don't want to be so rigid, like, no, you can't have that slice of cake that, like, has a little bit of milk and egg in it. Like, you know, really, you're mad at me for that, right? So, I don't know. I kind of go both ways with it, but that's parenting. You know, sometimes you just don't know what you're going to do until you get there. Point is, I don't blame, what's her name? Chloe, that's her name. Oh, and it looks like their kids are 7, 6, 5, 4, 4, and 4. Okay, so they're all pretty young. I don't blame Chloe at all for making that decision. She and her husband for saying like, hey guys, you know, if you want to eat the cake, eat the cake. So another minor thing was just with the school. I guess the school they go to, the kindergarten, she said kindy, I think that's kindergarten. That's cute. That they have bees there, I guess. And so they get honey and they have chickens, they get eggs, and they make some stuff with eggs and honey and stuff like that. And I guess for a while they would make their own little, I think she said like veggie slices. So they would make their own vegan ones for the kids to bring, and sometimes they would forget and they'd be up, you know, in the middle of the night making these for the next morning.
Like I said, I feel like there are so many little aspects to this story that sort of led us to deciding to step away from veganism. Just over time, I really started to feel a pull away from veganism. I started to feel like the all or nothing mentality was toxic, or at least it was having a toxic effect on me. I felt like it was very anxiety inducing, and I was sort of worried that that would also rub off onto the children.
So that's something I haven't talked about a lot. I talk about, you know, reasons why people would have trouble being vegan or even can't be vegan, having allergies and stuff like that, and sometimes even cost. whatever else. But I haven't really talked about the sort of mental issues and maybe having issues with food. I guess I have mentioned eating disorders, but even outside of that, just having that kind of anxiety around food and maybe feeling like it's all or nothing. And then having kids on top of that and worrying that your view of food or your kind of maybe issues that she's having with food is going to rub off on the kids. I understand her worrying about that. And why, like, maybe like the slice of cake contributing to that. Just you're saying no because you're supposed to say no and because you're vegan, not because it's really that important. Avoiding something with less than 2% of milk in it, right? Like, does it really matter at that point? And I'm someone who would avoid that thing. I would still avoid that thing, but does it really matter? Maybe that's why I do better and I don't have any anxiety or that sort of feeling around food. I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time, but I know when I'm doing something because it's just like, well, I'm vegan, so that's what I do. I know that not having the whatever thing because it has less than 2% casein or whatever in it, like, I know that that's kind of a silly thing to go out of my way to avoid that thing. And because I know it's a silly thing, it's like, it doesn't have much of an effect on me. I think having that awareness maybe makes a difference, but I don't know.
We were vegetarian for years and that never felt restrictive at all because there are always vegetarian options everywhere and the kids never seemed interested in the alternative.
No doubt, vegetarian is it's a lot easier. And that's something I've talked about before with kids. It is a lot harder to raise vegan kids, to feed vegan kids properly, especially if you have picky eaters, than it is to feed them vegetarian, not only in just the practical day-to-day stuff, but also, again, in terms of that doctor or family members. People tend to be a lot more accepting of vegetarianism than they are of veganism, which makes sense. I mean, it is a much more restrictive diet. I'm not a doctor or dietitian or anything, but I personally, seeing how a lot of people, a lot of big YouTubers with kids feed their vegan kids, it makes me quite uncomfortable with the idea that so many people who have not spoken to a dietitian, who maybe don't have a whole lot of knowledge regarding nutrition, or they're getting their nutrition knowledge from some of these really awful vegan nutrition sources, are feeding their little kids vegan. It makes me very uncomfortable. And I think vegetarianism is a lot harder to fuck up.
Going to birthday parties, going out for dinner with people, going out family events, barbecues, lunches, and all sorts of things. Yes, you can bring your own vegan food, but often people will want to cater for you. And that can just feel really heavy after a while, feeling like you are making people go to a lot of effort. And some people probably don't want to go to all that effort. And I think it also restricts you from wanting to go to things or from people wanting to invite you to things because it just makes it tricky.
So again, social stuff, and that's something I've said before, go vegan except for social stuff, except for dining out, something like that, because so many people have left messages saying that that's the thing they struggle with. They can eat vegan at home, no problem, but when they go out, there are just no options, or they feel left out because everyone else is having like maybe this awesome like fatty meal and they've got like a salad or some shit. Again, real easy for me to say, just eat vegan food. What are you talking about? I live in Portland. There are a million vegan restaurants, and even restaurants that aren't vegan almost inevitably have a vegan option.
I felt like the restrictions of veganism was sort of causing a lot of stress for me, and not only that, but some mental health issues, making me feel like if I ate something that wasn't vegan, then I'm not worthy as a human, that I'm not good enough, that I was a bad person, essentially, because I had told myself all of this over the years that, to be a good person, I had to not eat this food.
If you're that type of person who gets into that really like all or nothing thing, and she says in the beginning of her veganism, she was very judgy, that having an effect on her mental health. Why is it hot now? It was so cool when I came down here. Now it's so hot. At some point, it's not going to be worth it. And I don't think that means just go back to omnivore, eat whatever you want, but just less restrictions, right? You can still make the bulk of the impact, right? Without going fully vegan. Okay, so she says they're basically back to vegetarian. They eat a lot of vegan food, but They don't just restrict themselves to vegan food. They're eating some dairy, some eggs, but still not eating meat. And I think she said still not buying like cow's milk to drink. And that seems to be the normal thing that happens when people are vegan, for especially for like a longer period of time. It seems like a lot of people are still eating largely plant-based diet. And I wonder if there's a difference with the health vegans, at least some of them, going more to the other extreme or just going back to like whatever, because they just might be more drawn to extremes, right? So especially, you know, if you're the type of vegan who's eaten the raw fruitarian, that sort of stuff, and you think that's the best, and then you go just straight to the carnivore, right? That sort of person, or someone who maybe was eating raw or just a very, you know, restricted whole foods vegan diet, no oil, stuff like that for a long time, and then just get sick of it, and then it's just like, whatever, I don't even care, I'm just gonna eat whatever I want now, right? So I'm not surprised that someone who said, you know, that I guess it wasn't about health, them going vegan or vegetarian perhaps, that it was about the animals. I'm not surprised that she obviously still cares and wants to minimize animal products. Not saying that's like a perfect observation or anything. Obviously, there are people who claim to really care and then they change their viewpoint a lot when they make their I'm no longer vegan video. But typically those people tend to be more in the health vegan camp. Certainly if you expect veganism to be this like perfect diet and then it's not, you get sick or you just don't feel perfect. It's not surprising if you go looking in the totally opposite direction for the next best diet.
It is hard to sort of live in that mindset that you have to be perfect all the time, and if you don't adhere to 100% perfection, you are bad. You are a bad person. It's really just that mindset that I want to break away from and that I don't want to raise my children with.
Absolutely. And I wish there are certain vegans, not so many anymore. I think most of the big vegan YouTubers now are like pretty moderate, pretty chill, but there are still, you know, some who are definitely have that sort of opinion about people and talk about people who aren't vegan or even who are vegetarian really horribly. I wish they would remember that, you know, that influences people like Chloe. No one should feel like they have to be perfect, you know, and don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like no one's gonna be perfect, number one, but even if you can't be vegan in this case, you do the best you can. Always keeping in mind that the things that are the biggest impact, those are the things that you should focus on. You shouldn't put the same amount of focus on not eating meat as you do on avoiding the fucking coffee mate creamer with less than 2% of milk in it. They're not the same. Shame works on some people, I'm sure. Calling people an asshole and saying you're a vegetarian, but you're still an asshole. I'm sure that works on some people, but on most people, it just doesn't. And you can really fuck with people's mental health doing that kind of stuff. And if that doesn't make you feel bad, yikes.
Like I said, I know some people are going to be disappointed. Some people might even feel angry about it and not understand because it's not the path they're on, so they might not understand how somebody else could feel this way. And that is completely okay. I understand that. I remember being vegan and seeing other people going back from being vegan, and I remember how that made me feel too. Sometimes I felt like I didn't understand.
Again, I really appreciate her acknowledging that, like, you know, people might be a little confused or upset. And yeah, I really like her. She's like very calm and very nice to listen to. It's definitely a channel I think I would watch if it weren't a, you know, family vlogging channel. She seems very nice, but yeah, I wish more parents would realize the effect that this could have on kids when they grow up and go, wow, I did not sign up for this. You wanted to be a YouTuber, I did not. But anyway, that's not what this video is about. Overall, I really liked her video. It's one of the better, ex-vegan videos I have seen. She seems very, dang it, camera. She seems very genuine, and I think it's good to hear those types of issues, those types of obstacles they've had, because I think that's very common for vegan families. So yeah, I guess that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. Consider subscribing if you did. Support the channel, patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. And I will have a new video hopefully very soon.